Okay. Hi, I'm Joey. I'm a musician, and I do not use AI in my work. I do not use any AI generated sounds, and I don't use ChatGPT to come up with lyrics. I don't even use ChatGPT for these videos. It's all pen and paper, old school. Here's my question: is that performative? Is it performative to not use AI? That's a hard question to answer. I probably won't totally answer it in this video, but we can at least talk about the question. So, to me, the very first thing we need to do is to define what we mean by AI. What are we talking about? I'm not talking about Allen Iverson. I'm talking about artificial intelligence, and specifically, I'm talking about generative artificial intelligence, right? Things like ChatGPT, which is a large language model, things like Sora, which is a stable diffusion model for images, and I believe a similar thing is done for things like Suno, which can generate music from text prompts. I want to get kind of out of the way right away the fact that I'm not talking here about AI slop. We can all agree that AI slop is bad. We can agree that just typing in, like, make me jazz music and then it just spits out whatever, and then having like 60 of those be uploaded every second, we can all agree that, just like AI output going out, we can all agree that that's not really what we want as artists, and we can all agree that, at least for right now, it's bad. But I want to also say that for this video, I'm not talking about AI as it specifically exists for sure and implemented and accessible now. So I'm going to ignore, for the purposes of this video, environmental consequences, the water thing, power. I'm not going to talk about any of that. We're imagining that doesn't exist. And I'm also going to be talking about, kind of, because I want to get at the philosophy of this thing and really try to get at the core of what we're talking about, I'm going to be talking about a currently fictional perfect AI, or an arbitrarily good AI, you could say. Because my belief about AI, my personal belief, is that anything you can do on a computer will eventually be able to do without you. That's a little maxim that I have come up with that I believe. So I'm going to be talking about some theoretical, sort of, you could say, platonic ideal of what generative AI will eventually be able to be, and I will define that now here. A constant stream of musical ideas and sounds that you can prompt in any way you want, that is the best sounds you've ever heard. Because that's what I believe musical AI will be at some point in the near future. Not just a constant stream of slop, but of the best stuff you've ever heard. I think it will be that. And already, for the rest of this video now, some people are going to be saying, well, that's a straw man. You're arguing with a straw man definition of what AI might be that it isn't right now. I would argue this is not a straw man. My opinion is that this definition I've just put out is the inevitable consequence of AI technology, and so that is what I'm going to be talking about in this video. If your belief is that AI will never get any better, or that it will get worse because of feeding it on its own data, which is possible, then I understand that to you the rest of my argument is kind of based on a straw man, and I'm just going to kind of accept that me and you may just disagree about this thing, and that's okay, and I would like for you to engage with me in the comments if that's you. Okay, so we are setting aside environmental impact and imagining a version of AI that doesn't have that, because, again, we're trying to get at the real philosophy about art here. Okay, so we've defined one of our important terms, AI. Now let's define our other important term, performative. I looked at the Oxford English Dictionary online. I do not have a physical copy. And it defined performative. It gives a few, but the one that I'm talking about here is, and I'm paraphrasing, something, an action or thing is performative if it is done for the sake of appearance and to improve one's image. I would add myself, the Oxford English Dictionary does not say this, but I would specify that this includes things that are done for the purpose of improving one's self-image. So I would include that. The Oxford English Dictionary does not specifically say self-image counts. I'm saying that. Now, just based on this definition, we can arrive at another important thing I wanted to say, which is that something being performative does not make it bad or wrong. For example, I would argue that collecting and listening to vinyl records in 2026 is performative. And it's also something I want to get into. I haven't gotten into it yet, but I want to. It's cool. Having vinyls is cool. Listening to vinyls is cool. Fun, right? Not bad, but I would argue performative, right? It's kind of something that you're doing for the image of it, and it's not like vinyl is the highest quality way to listen to music. That would be CDs, CD quality, or FLAC files, right? Those are higher quality than vinyl. They have a better very low and very high-end response, and it's okay if you don't know what that means, but it's higher quality. The vinyl is you're kind of LARPing, as it were. LARPing is kind of what I wanted to say about vinyl, and I would argue that a similar thing is true for recording your songs to a tape machine in 2026 instead of using a computer. The final listener doesn't really care. It's not like you could do the same thing by recording on the computer and then recording through the tape machine. And honestly, the final listener probably doesn't even care that you did that at all. They probably can't tell. You're just doing that for your own self-image as an artist. You want to be like a guy that uses tape. And just a caveat, I know someone's going to say this, even if it's 10 years from now. If you're an engineer that's been doing tape for 20 or 30 years, obviously you should keep doing it, and there's no reason for you to learn another system that... Obviously, I'm talking about like if I were going to do it. If I were going to record on tape today, it would be performative because I'm a young man. Okay. Now, just to recap, because I was rambling a little bit, our goal for this video is to answer the question, is not using AI in your art performative? And specifically, I'm talking about music. So, the third thing I need to talk about now that I've defined AI and performative is, what is our goal? What is our goal when we create music? I'm talking about music. A lot of this applies to other stuff. I'm saying music. I would say there are two. The first goal is to be cool. To be a cool guy that's a fucking musician, man. And not to swear. Your goal is to be cool. Your goal is that you want people to like you and think you are pretty cool and awesome, that you can play the guitar or the drums or the bass or make a cool beat on FL Studio. I would say that's one of our big goals. And I would say that our other goal is to make really good music, right? We want to be artists that stand the test of time. We want to create stuff that, 100 years from now, people will still appreciate as genius, amazing, whoa, wow, how did he come up with that works of art? So, two goals, to be cool and to make good stuff. And that's what I have written down here in sort of a little mimetic, quick way. So, here we come to my big question. If your primary goal, or your only goal, were to make the best song possible, then I would argue, based on the definition I have given of AI that some may argue is a straw man, but that I argue is not, you should use AI. That would be the best way to achieve your goal. If your goal is to create the best song, and you're taking your pride and your ego completely out of it, and accepting that people are going to look at you as an AI loser that is a dumb person who has no good ideas and is a complete failure and should just completely give up and die, if you just completely were leaving your ego at the door and your goal was only to create the best piece of recorded audio that you possibly could, I do not see a reason why you wouldn't use AI. I think the only reason that we feel bad about using AI, that we don't use it, the only reason that we don't use it, I think, is because of the fact that it makes us feel bad about ourselves, and it makes us think that others will feel bad about us. And to me, that is image and self-image, and to me, therefore, based on our definitions, it's performative. So we come to my initial answer to this question of the video, which is yes, I believe that not using AI is performative. It's something that you do because it's something that you do for the sake of appearance or to improve your image or your self-image, which I've added self-image, but I think it's fair to add that. Now, performative doesn't mean bad. I covered that already. There's plenty of things we do that are performative, that are fine, that are good. And as artists, we are performers, right? We are performers. So, of course, we're going to do things that are performative. We're performers, right? There's a reason that no one gets mad when AI finds someone's breast cancer or when a robot is able to perform a surgery to remove that cancer. No one is mad about that. Thank God. We say thank God for this technology that saved this woman's life. Because surgeons are not artists. They should not be performative. If a surgeon said, guys, I don't use those robots and that AI stuff. I find the cancer with my eye or not at all. We would say, dude, we would say, you go, fire this, get this guy in jail. What are you, crazy? You got to use the AI because it's going to save a woman's life. So this is my point. As artists, that's not us. What we do is performative. Our lives, we kind of act out this like artist's life. It's part of it. It's part of the audience's experience is to know that's a guy up there really playing guitar himself. You know, there's a reason that the audience maybe doesn't want us to just use backing tracks and lip sync Milli Vanilli style. They want to have that experience that is a real human experience, and that's part of art, and that's okay. So for this part of the video, we've come to this kind of answer, my answer, right, which is that not using AI is performative, and that's okay because art is kind of performative in and of itself. Okay, so I've talked about that. Now, we've kind of reached the crest of this video. I've answered my initial question. We are now entering into the further discussion portion of the show, which is usually where I get to about at the halfway mark. So my next bullet point is, when do we get mad / where is the line, right? Where is the line with AI? For example, Autotune is AI. It's not generative AI, but it's artificial, intelligent code that changes the sounds of your thing that you're doing. And, you know, as postmodern liberals, we all agree that, hey, there's nothing wrong with using Autotune, right? We would never be boomers and say, oh, that Autotune is bad, right? We're Gen Z. We love Autotune. We love the underground rap stuff, right? But that's an interesting question, right? Look at the underground rap scene. How does that scene work? Well, it's like an FL Studio assembly line where one guy makes a loop and then the next guy makes the same beat that everyone else makes, and then the next guy uses a lot of auto-tune and effects to make his voice not sound like a bad performance, which is what he does. He does a bad performance and fixes it on the computer, and then he puts out a little crappy McDonald's Happy Meal song that he made in 20 minutes that another guy spent another 5 minutes on, and it's like an assembly line. It's like making Model Ts. It's like loop, beat, song, loop, beat, song. They're made to be listened to for 15 seconds on TikTok and then never again. Okay, that's at least they're not using AI, but is that the goal of music? Is that scene the goal of music? So I wanted to mention that, right? Like, okay, at least they're not using generative AI, but they are being pretty lazy, right? It's certainly not, you know, they're not putting a lot of thought into it. So if the guy that makes, you know, I'm not even really up with the latest terminology, but if the guy that makes Egyptian swag loops for whatever the hot new TikTok rapper of the day is, if he AI generated those loops, what really is changing? He's spending 5 seconds on it instead of 3 minutes. Okay. Is that a great loss to humanity? Where's our line? That's my first thing I wanted to say. Next thing I wanted to bring up, the YouTube channel, speaking of underground scene, the YouTube channel Analog Princess. There's a YouTube channel, not very well known, that I'm a fan of, called Analog Princess. They ostensibly make FL Studio tutorials, but the videos are really more like art pieces, and they heavily make use of generative AI. They use AI voices to create, for example, Family Guy characters talking about FL Studio, and I believe they use AI-generated visuals and visual effects as well. And a lot of comments on that YouTube channel, if you go read them, say things like, wow, I like this use of AI. I'm okay with this use of AI. This is how AI should be used. And another example of that is, I remember a couple years ago when AI was first coming out, the AI president videos where Barack Obama and Trump and Biden and Bush would like play Call of Duty or Fortnite together, or they would do a tier list of fast food restaurants or whatever. And I remember those were really funny to me when they came out. And I saw a lot of comments at the time of people saying things like, I don't like AI, but this is okay. I like this. So I wanted to bring those up and make a point about how, for example, with the Analog Princess YouTube channel, I think the reason people like that use of AI is because that channel couldn't really exist without AI. It wouldn't be the same thing. It would be something different, right? So I think there's a point where if you're using AI in a way that you couldn't make what you're doing without AI, I think people are okay with it. the Analog Princess YouTube channel couldn't really exist without AI. The whole point of it is kind of that it's an AI project. So if you took the AI away, it would become something else completely, and I think that's why people are okay with it, because you're not lazily replacing a human being, for example, like a session player. If I was going to AI generate, for example, some trumpets or something, I'm not lazily replacing a real trumpet player with AI. I'm, something like the Analog Princess channel. It's a unique, creative application of the software of AI that you can't do any other way. So I think that's kind of one of the lines that I might imagine being drawn. So another thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to AI is sampling. I will now roll a short clip from the late Prince speaking about sampling, which at the time was kind of a new technique. And so I think as Gen Z, as fans of hip hop and rap, and as total, whatever, I think we say, "Oh, Prince, you old boomer, you old fart." That's not right at all. We love sampling. We think sampling is great, and it's a kind of a musical collage of textures and sounds from various places, and recontextualizing old ideas in a new way. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's just, oh, well, that kind of applies to AI a little bit, right? Specifically to the argument about how AI is stealing because it's trained on other people's ideas. How is it that it's okay for me to take someone else's full, complete song, chop 10 seconds out of it, and loop that into my own song, but it's not okay for me to take 10,000 songs, train an AI model on them, and then create something new and original with that AI model that doesn't exist in any of those songs? Somehow that second thing is stealing, but the first thing isn't. That doesn't make sense to me. I'm sorry, and I'm not here to defend AI. I don't like AI. In some ways I don't like it, at least, and I believe sampling is fine. I'm a fan of hip hop and hip hop producers, Madlib and Jay Dilla and all these guys. I love, so I'm just asking you guys the question. Honestly, I don't have an answer for that, where the line is with sampling. I don't know. It's kind of confusing and weird, and I'm struggling to find that line. So if you can think of a reason why that conundrum can be solved, then please leave it in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on that. I wanted to also say, what if it was random, right? AI generated is bad because it's random, right? But if I sampled literal random noise, I don't think anyone would have a problem with that. It would just be avant-garde experimental noise music. So I wanted to say that. What if it was random? Would that make it better? Okay, finally, moving forward. Maybe the only way out of this conundrum that I've been discussing and that we've all been discussing for a few years now around AI, generative AI in the arts, maybe the only way out is forward. Maybe we need to mourn the past. Maybe we need to say, damn, it's sad that a computer replaces a people. That's sad. It makes me sad that what used to take hours and hours of practice now takes a few clicks of a keyboard. That makes me sad. That doesn't make me feel good. It makes me feel bad. Maybe we need to just sit with those feelings and feel that for a while. And then maybe we have to move on. Maybe we have to accept that even though we don't necessarily like that this technology exists, that it does exist. And we're going to have a conversation about this as artists. That's going to take us decades probably to figure out how we feel about this. But you can't make it not exist. And to be honest, I have AI FOMO. I have a little bit of AI FOMO. I look at stuff like, for example, that Analog Princess YouTube channel, or I just think about, man, people are going to be using AI to generate all these cool sounds. And if I want to keep being a guy that doesn't use AI, I'm going to miss out on that. And I just have a little bit of FOMO, and I'm being honest. That's not a feeling I'm necessarily proud of. I'm just being honest with you guys that I do feel that. A little bit of FOMO. Like, I kind of want to be a part of this a little bit, but I don't want to be looked at as like an AI guy. And so this is what I'm talking about with the performative thing. And finally, I wanted to say that I think the most important thing, and my real contribution to this conversation, is I think it's important for this to be open and honest. I think it's important that if you're using AI, you should be very clear about that, and that if you're not using AI, you can be clear about that and say, I'm not using it. And that as artists, we're going to have to go on honor system. You know, I don't think there's going to be a way to tell for sure if someone's using AI or not. I think we have to go on the honor system and say, look, I think the honorable thing to do is to disclaim when you're using it, and if you are using it, and in what way you're using it. And honestly, if you're disclaiming that you're using it, what you're making may be bad stuff. It may be bad. It may be slop. You know, if you're just generating it and not touching it. Or it could be genius. You could be generating cool little tiny sounds and sampling those in a creative way. But I think as long as you're being honest about what you're doing, I just don't see what's wrong with that. If you're being honest with people and saying, hey, I'm using AI in this way, I don't see what's wrong with that. And I guess that's all I have to say about this. I'll see you guys another time. Bye bye.